Hello and welcome to Unscripted, abbreviated on Tuesday the 16th of July, still from a cafe in the south of France. I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Gavin Ashenden, toujours mouillé en Normandie.
Excellent. Excellent. Today's news, we begin with more American politics, simply because this is what's coming up in the news at the moment. And President Trump has picked JD Vance as his VP pick. Vance is a true Rust Belt, blue collar chap. Grew up in Ohio. Wrote in 2016 Hillbilly Elegy about a memoir of his life growing up there, and is a real conservative, and has spoken about went to Yale, and now is in the Republican Party. And sorry, I'm having trouble with my ears, my headphones, so has spoken about this journey of going from what one might call a disadvantaged childhood, no material wealth and connections, to being a politician, and now being picked as Trump's vice president. So quite a story. What are we to make of Vance? Well, the reason we're talking about him here today is because he is a Catholic. He's a Catholic convert and has spoken about his conversion to the faith. So what do you make of this pick, Gavin, while I sort my headphones out?
He's a Catholic with a sense of humor, Catherine. So today he was talking about the danger of a Muslim state getting hold of nuclear weapons. And he was just haphazardly guessing which Muslim state would be the first one to have access to nuclear weapons on the international stage. And he said maybe Pakistan, maybe India, but probably the UK, he said. And I thought that was very funny. Apparently, BBC pundits have gone apoplectic over this. But it was said tongue-in-cheek, of course, and I thought it was rather witty. Be that as it may, I didn't know anything about JD Vance until yesterday. Some American friends of mine have written to me saying that he's lovely and could they please buy me a Hillbilly Elegy? And every time they've tried, it's failed. Apparently, Amazon US and Amazon UK don't handshake. So I've yet to read it, but I very much like what I've read of him. And I would say that he's a young man on a journey. He's awfully young, really. And I like the journey he's been on. First of all, I really liked what he said about what he'd achieved. A lot of people said, my goodness, you're an extraordinary man. Look what you've done. You've gone from decadence and unemployment and desolation in the Ohio Rust Belt to Yale, and now top of the Republican Party. And he said, no, really, all I've done is ordinary things. It's just I kept going. So he's a story of the person who won't give up and has kept going. And I like, when I listen to him, I've listened to half a dozen YouTube interviews with him. And I like the fact he seems to be a clear-minded man telling the truth. It's so different, the tone of voice that brings. Because, you hear, at the moment you listen to a politician talking, they're weaving fabrications and presentations and they're seeking to dissemble and throwing dust in your eye. And every so often, when somebody tells you the truth, you go, oh, that's refreshing. So he seems to me to be somebody who's capable of thinking the truth and telling the truth, which is really great.
Yeah. Very good. A tweet from him has just flown up on my phone as you've been speaking. JD Vance, who I like our friend on Twitter, Eccles, confused with JD Flynn, the two JD Catholics. I agree. He seems like a good pick. And people are saying that if it wasn't for the Catholic support, that sort of base of Catholic support, conservative Catholic support, that Trump wouldn't be have a chance of getting back in the White House. So, there's certainly a lot to like about Vance. When he converted to Catholicism, he took Augustine as his confirmation name, inspired by Saint Augustine. He's young, which is great. He's got experience in the military. He's served in Iraq, and so he'll be able to speak to those. And with his background, he'll be able to speak to in a way that I think is accessible to all these people, these sort of wide groups of people.
I was a bit disappointed when I discovered that he wasn't entirely reliable on the abortion issue, because it seems to me it's the issue of our time. But I suppose I'm somebody who's been on a journey. It's taken me a while to get there. Actually, you've been quite influential in the last couple of years. I've known you to help me tighten my views up and move on beyond the kind of residual brainwashed relativism that many of us carry with us. So I don't know, is it more his grandmother? I'm not sure what a Ihio more is, but I assume it's his grandmother. Anyway, it's a female relative who's really influenced him, who is in favor very much of pro-choice. The good news is that Biden and the administration are attacking him for being against women's rights. So that must mean that he's reasonably sound on abortion. But what he's done is to take a politically pragmatic view that's similar to one that Trump has done, which I don't think is good enough as a matter of conscience, but it's not all bad, and said this is a matter for each of the different states to legislate on. Well, it's a matter of glass half empty, half full. 2 years ago, the idea of Roe and Wade being overturned and the legislative choice being given to the states would have been seemed the most splendiferous Catholic victory. So I think we have to take our victories where we can find them.
It's never good enough, though, is it? It's true. Vance supported the legality of the abortion pill, and I can't pronounce the name, mifepristone or something.
I
The
can't
most
either.
commonly used.
I'll leave it to you to do it.
Well, I can't. The most commonly used abortion pill in the US, but he is pro-life as far as any politician is, and seemingly more so than Trump, and he's probably about as good as we can hope for. But I think that's where the limitations are that we have to acknowledge. As good as we can hope for, but we have to remember that we're not going to be saved by politicians. Our salvation is through Christ alone. And I think as we discuss politics, as we discuss Trump and what's happening in the UK, and tomorrow we're going to meet and discuss the worrying introduction of a ban on conversion therapy from Keir Starmer's government. And these things are worrying, but I think we're in danger of, because we will have our own political leanings, but I think we're in danger of leaning that way so much that we forget that this is not where all the answers lie. So I think even with the Trump shooting, which we've discussed, some of the rhetoric around that, and there was a vision of Our Lady, and there's a danger of us sanctifying Trump simply because he isn't the progressive that we so despise and see damaging our children. And I think we have to be careful. I've spoken often, many times, about that lopsidedness that C.S. Lewis speaks about in Mere Christianity. I think we have to be very careful of a lopsidedness and going too far one way or the other. So I think we're always seeking to have that, our own biases confirmed, aren't we? And so I'm just trying to be cautious when we discuss politics and say, yes, it's great. We've got Vance. We've got a lot of good Catholic politicians in Trump's administration. He got Amy Coney Barrett into the Supreme Court, which tipped the balance in favour of demolition or whatever you call it, getting rid of.
Getting rid of, yes.
I'm looking for a better word than getting rid of Roe v. Wade. Overturning. There we go. It will come in the end, unscripted.
Even an
but without a
abolition,
script,
perhaps.
it takes a while. An abolition. Check out Gavin Ashenden. Very good. The abolition of man, or the getting rid of man, which sounds better.
The abolition of Roe and Wade.
Yeah. So yes. So I think as we talk politics, it's useful. Let's have a look at Vance. Great, interesting Catholic guy, very impressive. Lots of pro-life leanings, very good. In touch with the ordinary working man, cares about the economy, all good things, but there let's not forget the limits, and
I'm glad
say
you
our
said
prayers
that.
and continue to try and strive for sanctity, which is the antidote to all of this, is saints. So we can't just point to others and say you need to be saints. We need to say, well it falls to me. I need to try and be a saint. So that's the answer, isn't it?
I'm a bit worried I'm suffering from a security lapse because I've just interviewed Bishop Strickland for the Catholic Herald's podcast, and you're saying exactly what he said, almost word for word. So I'm worried you may have been listening in and overheard it. But I suspect if you're not challenging him,
I'm not.
or you're not listening in, then congratulations, because Bishop Strickland was saying that too. And I think let me echo what you said, because it's very easy for people to imagine that we're diehard Republicans or pro-Trump. It isn't that at all. If we have enthusiasm for the election of Trump, it's mainly because Trump is stopping Biden and the way in which and the whole democratic progressive agenda, which is so anti-Catholic and anti-Christian. One of the things that Bishop Strickland said as we talked this over was that he and I have belonged to a generation that have been told, keep out of politics, because if you take one political view rather than another, then you won't be able to exercise any pastoral care or Christian fellowship with people who disagree with you. But he was saying that it's changed now. And what's changed in the last 10 years has been the issue of truth. And one side of the political spectrum is at least still dealing with truth, but the other side isn't. It's anti-truth. It's post-truth. And so, he was giving the example of all the headlines that said Trump stumbles on stage. They only come from one side of the spectrum. And he was saying that as Catholics, he thinks that we have a right to be enthusiastic about politicians who tell more truth than the other side. It's not that we're glorifying them or we belong to their party or we're backing them come what may or we have no reservations. It's simply that that there is a degree of relativism still available to us, and it exists in political choice. They're better than the other side, which is worse.
Yes, sorry, excuse, as I said the other day, mopeds and crowds going by, and I hope it's not being picked up too much on the microphone. But yes, you're quite right. So because some other stuff coming from the other side, if you want to call it the other side, coming from an anti-truth perspective, some of the lies that we're being told about who we are and our givenness and our reality, and saying, we can't trust our own reason. We want to stop what we don't like. And I suppose what I'm saying and what you're saying there and what you've just told us Bishop Strickland said is, but whilst we're concerned to stop what we don't like, it doesn't mean that we can go along with anything that's any voice that happens to be on a side that is against those things that we dislike. So there's places of common ground that we can meet, but the only ground that we can stand on is the ground of truth in our church. I remember when Dave Rubin, who became a very well-known conservative commentator, and was saying some wonderful things. He had a huge profile. I met him at the ARC conference, and he was speaking out against Black Lives Matter and the critical theory and the transgender ideology and all of these things that we also hold to be real problems in society. He then said that with his gay partner was having a surrogate baby, and his fans cheered him. And some of the Christians who also were so thankful for his voice speaking against the progressive nonsense found that they felt awkward and found themselves cheering him. And I think a few Catholics especially stood up and said, this is a terrible offence against human life. This is awful. And I thought, that's exactly right. Yes, we can say thank you to the likes of Dave Rubin and other conservative commentators where they hit the right note in terms of truth. But where they err, then that needs to be called out too. So we don't pin our colours to any mast that is a person or a political ideology, but only to truth itself. And that will mean that we sometimes find ourselves on one day in support of this person or this policy, and on the other perhaps disagreeing. And we have to be brave enough and courageous enough to say that, I think.
I think Jesus speaks to that in his parable of the coin, when he says, "Whose face is on this?" and they say Caesar, and then our Lord seems to me to be legitimize a dual approach that is both at one time pragmatic and the other time idealistic. So the pragmatism is you pay taxes with Caesar's currency to Caesar. That's the pragmatic response. You're allowed to be pragmatic politically and in terms of your civic duty. But you have to be idealistic. The other side of the coin is giving God your devotion, your love, your heart, and you shouldn't mix up the two. Nor are they equal. But they're two sides of the coin that we have to live with in life. So part of the time we have to be political pragmatists and take the best of the least worst of the choices given to us. And the other half of the time is we're passionate idealists, sticking to the principles that God has given and being willing to die for them. But we have these two facets to us. And if you and I speak politically occasionally, it's not because we're not on other occasions speaking spiritually at other times. We're allowed to have dual facets, dual languages.
Yeah, I can't remember who, and perhaps our members might comment below if they know who I'm talking about. But I remember a case, I think it was a young pro-life woman who went to court over some of her activity. Don't know if it was here or in the US, and I think it was in the US. And the judge said to her, doesn't your own scripture say, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's? In other words, keep your religion out of pro-life issues. And she said, yes, but the souls of our unborn children are not Caesar's. And
yes, exactly. Yes.
Actually, even as I say it, I think it was that Mother Teresa. So it's come from somewhere, and it's a little rattling around in my brain. I can't remember where, but I thought
Bishop Strickland again. I would think. Probably.
Well, I'll have to check my wiretap into your laptop and listen back.
Not as fast as I'm going to check it.
Anyway, right. Thanks, Gavin. I will speak again tomorrow, Wednesday, the 17th of July, and as I said, we'll discuss this ban on conversion therapy and the implications for that, and anything else that comes to our attention in the next 24 hours. And I think I'll be at this same cafe for another day until I get back to what I hear is rainy old England. Gavin.
How are the French coping with your father's walking around safely outfit, which seems to involve wrapping himself up?
I have spared our members. I'll have to decide whether I give them a glimpse. My wonderfully eccentric father decided to go to the beach with us last night, and he's concerned about the sun. He's a very pale Irishman, and he decided that the best get-up would be safety goggles, a dressing gown tied with twine, white socks and black shoes, and white gloves on his hand, and a straw hat.
White gloves and straw hat. And the goggles.
I know, he's absolutely hilarious. But he has an ability to laugh at himself. I said, Dad, they're going to think I'm taking a patient out of the hospital. And he said, I know. But he is hilarious. We laugh a lot together. So
he's not afraid of what other people think of him, is he?
Oh, no, he really isn't. And everybody loves him.
From.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Everybody loves him. That's the thing. We were speaking about a friend he grew up with. I realise this has become Bennett's family news, but a friend he grew up with who's very, very wealthy, and they were both in the building industry together years ago. And this friend is now a multi-millionaire, and Dad's not. He said, but the thing is, apparently he's very lonely. He's got no friends. And then Dad said, I've got lots of friends, lovely people, and people gravitate towards Dad. He loves people. He'll talk to anyone. He's here doing his best to speak to the locals in French with his best estuary accent. And we both agreed what a blessing that is, that this man is surrounded with money but no friends. So you wouldn't swap it.
Well, I appoint myself secretary of the Peter O'Neill fan club, and I'm very pleased that he's sufficiently optimistic at the age of 90 to want to consider to protect his skin against any further deterioration from exposure to the sun. Shows
He's very wise.
Great foresight for the future 20 years.
There we are. Yes, take note. Right, well, as people fill up at the cafe, I'll say my goodbyes and see you tomorrow, Gavin. Thanks for today's news, and thank you to all of you members for sticking with us, for watching, and do comment below, and don't forget you can get in touch at info@catholicunscripted.com. But for now, thank you. I'm Catherine Bennett.
I'm Gavin Ashenden, stuck in the very dull north of France.